Hello, welcome to the Daily Fantasy Flex Podcast, the NFL edition. I am your host, Bryan Mears. This week I am joined by three fellow FantasyLabs guys, Matthew Freedman, Peter Jennings, aka CSU Ram 88, and Ian Hartitz. We are going to jump into Week 16, but briefly, let's talk about Week 15 just a little bit. It was a weird week. Pete, we talked last week, there's so many value running backs in that 4 or 5K range. It seems the way to be profitable last week was to pivot off of all of those guys and to pay up for running backs. All of the top 5 salaried running backs in the main slate posted at least 20 DraftKings points, led by Todd Gurley, obviously with 48 DraftKings points. So how was your Week 15, Pete? And were you able to pivot away from the low price running backs and get on some of these higher guys?
Yeah, it was an interesting week. My week went pretty well. I did well in cash, not as good in tournaments. Classic. Like, you just go away from the typical roster construction and you do well. Gronkowski was really the savior for me in cash, and Drake was one of the mid-stakes or mid-price guys that actually performed well. I was fortunate to have, and Cam Newton across the board kind of salvaged the week for me, but didn't have enough Todd Gurley, who in hindsight obviously was a really sharp play given roster construction. And I think that was just the epitome of a week where, you really just go away from the herd in terms of what most people are doing roster construction wise, and you're in a good spot. In cash, though, I thought it was obvious. Running back is one of those positions where these cheap guys really do meet their value very often. Pretty unlucky that a lot of those guys didn't get there. So I don't hate the process in cash, but in tournaments is just a great opportunity to be contrarian and while still getting a lot of equity with those high-end running backs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ian, anything stand out to you just from like a workload perspective? A lot of these guys busted, but, we talked throughout the week that it was hard to get off the price tags, but they were in some interesting spots, like some of them were like dogs, which is, not a typical situation that we want to target. Anything stand out to you as, just thinking about your process?
Yeah, some of those, it was interesting because, we did try to think through the whole process with the cheap running backs, and just some really good spots that didn't go through all that well. We had Mike Davis at home coming off nice performances against the Eagles and Jags. All of a sudden, the Seahawks can't move the ball at all against what we thought was a pretty poor run defense. And then we had Samaje Perine, a tough matchup against the Cardinals, but we thought maybe home favorite. And that didn't get going, in part because we had, Peter's old college buddy, Capri Bibbs, come in and basically just take over the scat back role and everyone thought that was going to be Perine with Byron Marshall out. So I think just maybe being careful about estimating people's future usage if we haven't already seen that with our own eyes. We can predict it, and we thought Perine would have more of a 3-down role, but until we actually, see that, gotta be careful.
Cool. Freeman, Week 15. Any last thoughts before we move on to Week 16? Blake Bortles, one of the top quarterbacks.
Yeah, always Bortles forever. And speaking of the Jags, like Chris Ivory not getting those goal line touchdowns, those going to the fullback, that had to be supremely tilting for some people, namely Peter. But I imagine for other people, I thought Chris Ivory was a pretty decent play there.
Yeah. You had a good Nick Foles call. I think you called him top 5 quarterback, and he ended up number 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think I called him as a top 3 for my bold call, which teaser. Probably do that again, which I guess is not really teaser if I'm telling you I'm going to do it again. But so that worked out well. And in terms of the projections, I'm hanging tough at number 4 in Fantasy Pros for one more week. So Week 16 is the last week that they count for rankings. So just sweating it out. And
where are you at right now?
I'm number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah. So
you're looking good.
I'm looking good, but I really want to try to finish in the top 5. Because they make a big deal for the people who finish in the top 5. So if I'm number 6, then it's finishing out of the cash in a GPP. So looking to finish in top 5.
I hear you. All right. Well, let's move to Week 16. We have an interesting week. No Thursday night football. We ended with a glorious one last week. We have 2 Saturday games: the Colts at the Ravens, the Vikings at the Packers, and then no Sunday night game this week. We do have 2 Monday games on Christmas. which is the Steelers, the Texans, and then the evening one is the Raiders, Eagles. So no Christmas Eve game. So it is an interesting slate on Sunday. Real quick, before we really jump into the nitty-gritty of the slate, I'd like to talk just a little bit about we have to start thinking about motivations. We already have Aaron Rodgers get back placed on the IR. They really don't have anything to play for. We've heard, like the Eagles have talked that once they get home field advantage, which they might if the Vikings somehow lose on Saturday, that they would rest some players. Ian, what are your thoughts on, are there any situations really other than the Eagles that we really need to worry about for Week 16, or are we sort of looking ahead to Week 17 as far as resting players?
Yeah, you said it. It was looking like the Eagles would be the big one this week, as they were playing on Monday night. It was one of those where Peterson didn't want to talk about it because they hadn't had the situation arise yet. But yeah, now with Brett Hundley going up against the Vikings at home, assuming that Case Keenum and company can take care of business, we shouldn't have to worry about anyone really resting too much until Week 17. But there are still situations, Leonard Fournette with the Jaguars, maybe some guys that we just gotta. If they are going to be in the playoffs, maybe we shouldn't expect the 30 carries we were seeing a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that's really fair. Freedman, Pete, are you guys really looking at motivation and stuff more so at this point of the year? We have the Cowboys really need to win to get in, and obviously you have a very motivated Zeke. But are you looking at motivation more than you are usually?
Pete's always looking at motivation. Take it away, Pete.
Yeah, it's always a factor. I think it's bigger in the NBA than it is in the NFL, but especially down the stretch, I think it's absolutely huge. You can see some really big opportunities when a team has to win, especially if they're facing an opponent that doesn't have to win. That can lead to a really, really big bloodbath. Obviously with the Cowboys this week, it's a really good situation. You got a ton of additional motivation. It's a huge factor. Week 17 is obviously the biggest factor. The playoffs, there's still a lot of teams in contention overall right now, but it is something that you have to be cognizant of. And certainly the teams that don't have motivation, you got to be really confident in the guys that you're taking from those teams because they can do weird things when they're out of it. And obviously, there's not tanking like there is in the NBA and the NFL, but these teams do have incentive to look at their young guys and see what they have versus riding their veterans.
That's fair. Yeah.
Example is the Packers. Packers are sitting Aaron Rodgers the rest of the year. It makes a ton of sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah, good points. We'll definitely factor that into our analysis, probably a little more so next week, but I think it's good to start talking about it. All right, let's get into our regular show formatting. As always, I start with a real or fake segment where I ask these guys just to talk about something that they've identified either lately from Week 15 or just something that has been catching their eye of late that it could be real or fake moving on. Again, moving on, there's not many weeks left, but I think talking about the process of still analyzing this stuff is good. Freedman, I'll kick to you first. What is something that's standing out to you in the last little bit?
Yeah, I think something that's real is Nick Foles. Obviously, I've already talked about him. I'm just going to keep on talking about him. It's going to be the Nick Foles cast. But I think it's going to be a pretty good game again for him going against the Raiders this week. The Raiders are dead last in DVOA, so a really nice matchup for him. They are at home, big favorites on that last game of the Week 16 slate on Christmas evening. So I think that'll be a really good spot for him. If you ignore or de-emphasize the statistics he had in his one season with Jeff Fisher, and I think it's probably fair to do that based on what we've seen out of Goff and Keenum. You have a guy who has actually some pretty good career numbers, even if you make some adjustments for his one, potentially outlier season with Chip Kelly. So I think he's someone who is real. Not that he's going to be Carson Wentz, but I think the drop-off from Wentz to Foles is going to be not as steep as a lot of people were predicting. And then for something that's fake, this is sort of like, I don't know, fake with an apostrophe. Like I'm going to say that the Falcons are somewhat fake. Like they've won 5 of 6 games, but I don't think they've won them in highly convincing fashion. I think there have been like a lot of mitigating factors in those wins. So we see a team that on a per drive basis looks really good in terms of time, plays, and yards. They're number one in the league in all three of those on a per drive basis. But the thing is that they have the 32nd, so dead last in the league, starting field position on a per drive basis. So it is much harder for them to convert those yards into points. And so we're seeing that just in terms of like their Vegas numbers. No team is underperforming their implied total on a weekly basis as much as the Falcons are. And so I think when we see them finally play some good defenses, which is what's going to happen this week against the Saints, and then in week 17 against the Panthers, I think we're going to see an offense that underperforms. And, I mean, the Falcons, if they lose 2 games, that is how the Cowboys can get into the playoffs if they win out. So, like, it's big for the Falcons to win these games, and then big for the NFC to see what happens with the Falcons. They really are the key to the playoffs.
Good points. Yeah, the motivation, again, is definitely going to be a factor in the next couple of weeks. Ian, what are some things that are standing out to you?
Kareem Hunt, man, he's back. No, but we've seen this coordinator change that happened about 3 weeks ago. First week back, we got a weird KC New York Jets shootout, but since then we've had 28 touches in back-to-back weeks, even including the shootout game. I mean, Hunt was still playing 90% of snaps, and we've finally kind of seen Charkandrick West take a backseat in the pass game. The result, I mean, we've seen Hunt basically match the same Terry went on to start the season. He's been the RB3 behind only Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley since the Chiefs made their coordinator change. And now he gets to go back home and face this Dolphins defense that we've seen play well a few times this season. But I think a lot of that's been, you know, some home division games, certain sets of scenarios. Like they've allowed 7.5 more additional points per game on the road this season, 24th ranked defense and overall DVOA. So definitely don't think they're the matchup to stop Hunt this week with this new workload. And then something that's fake, we mentioned it earlier, man, but I'm not buying Blake Bortles as all of a sudden this fantasy all-star. I'm not, you know, we've seen him play okay and put up some numbers in the past. Now they're also winning, which is nice. But at the same time, I mean, he went 16 games and threw for multiple touchdowns once. And now he's done it in each of the past 3 weeks. So I don't know. I'm not ready to pay up for the same price that, you know, he hasn't been at since we thought he was good in 2015, early 2016. So, yeah, he had nice games against Indy, beating up Seattle team and Houston. But as far as Blake Bortles being a consistent, you know, top-tier quarterback, I just don't think, that offense has enough pass attempts to go around, and B, that he's good enough to keep doing this on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, man, the Jags are so interesting. So Chad Millman, I'll be a company man here. Chad has been on them so much. Like he's talked about them in the podcast. He's like in his podcast, The Buffet with Chad Scooch. He's talked about them every week about how he thinks they're going to the Super Bowl. And our buddies over at FantasyLabs who run all these models and stuff to predict the season, they have the Jags as the best team in the NFL as of right now. So Chad was very happy to see that earlier today. Pete, what are your thoughts on the Jags, and then what are some trends that are standing out to you?
I was going to talk about the Jags as being absolutely for real. I'm with Ian in terms of just Blake Bortles' fantasy production. I think that he's playing a lot better, but you know, he's played some soft matchups, and I think the key for Jacksonville long term, and especially once we get into the playoffs, is going to be running the football and playing great defense. But that's why I love the Jaguars. I think they have, you know, an all-time historic offense or all-time historic defense. I think the offense is good enough, especially with Bortles, with more confidence, and hopefully Fournette will be healthy for the playoffs. So we saw, you know, like my Broncos team with Peyton Manning, who was playing terrible at the quarterback position. As long as he didn't make mistakes, that team was capable of winning a Super Bowl. And I think it's definitely true here with the Jaguars. I think that, you know, in a matchup against, say, like the Patriots, they can win. I think their defense is good enough to shut down a team like that. And, you know, if they can run the ball effectively and put Bortles in situations where he can be successful, I think they can do well. I think D.D. Westbrook's a really nice addition. In terms of something that I think is real, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but obviously the last 2 weeks have just been ridiculous performances in terms of yards and catches, and that's Gronk. I think Gronk will be, you know, a top 3 to 5, you know, flex option every single week when Le'Veon Bell's not on the slate. You know, knock him down 1 when he is. But this is going to be something we see a lot of down the stretch, in my opinion. I think they need to get him the ball. I actually think the time off, the suspension was good for him. It's going to keep him fresher. And he's just such a matchup nightmare. And I noticed in general, people aren't playing him nearly as much relative to past years. I think last year people got burned by Gronk a lot, so they have been punting more at tight end. And I think we're going to see a ton of production out of Gronkowski the next couple of weeks, and then definitely into the playoffs. So I'm paying up for Gronk when I can, looking for value elsewhere. I really think there's a ton of value in getting him. And these last 2 weeks, as well as he didn't score touchdowns. And I think that will revert back to what we've seen historically in his career, where he's, the best tight end by a large margin in terms of scoring touchdowns. And he was at one point, even with receivers, I think averaging more touchdowns per plays than anyone else. So loving Gronk. In terms of what's fake, it's so hard to call this fake stuff. Jimmy Garoppolo, I guess I'll say, who I love overall. I don't think he's the next, greatest quarterback of all time. I think he's really good, but I think he'll come back to earth against this Jacksonville defense. I really like Garoppolo. I think he's a top, 8 quarterback asset, but he's not the next, guaranteed Tom Brady, in my opinion.
Freeman.
He comes back to it. He regresses this week because of the matchup. That's the only reason.
I'm going to say it's such a bold take to say that a quarterback is going to struggle against the Jags.
That's why
who would have thought that?
I don't have anything.
Yeah.
The Jags, just to put it in perspective, to follow up on what Pete said about how awesome they are, their defense is amazing. They have 2 top 12 edge rushers. They have 3 linebackers who are top 15 in coverage. And, I think the big thing with defense now, because it is more of a passing league, is can you stop the other team's passing game? And they can absolutely do that with their pass rushers, even with their linebackers, and then, of course, with their secondary, where they have 5 very good defensive backs. So it's an amazing situation. I think the one real thing is Blake Bortles, even if you adjust for him being a bad quarterback, he's not the decision maker that Peyton Manning was, or that other quarterbacks who aren't good but who are at least smart. I don't know if Bortles is smart. That might seem bad to say. I don't know if we have enough to judge sort of his football IQ, but it's not as if that's ever been anything that's been talked about with him as a player. So I think that's something that's pretty big in terms of why I don't see them advancing to the Super Bowl. But, I've been wrong about this team, specifically Bortles all year.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah, it's crazy. What would the odds a year ago have been on a Jags-Rams Super Bowl?
Amazing.
You would have gotten amazing odds on that. Yeah. All right. We'll see how it goes. Let's keep on moving in the show. Let's get to our chalk segment. So first things first, we're making some lineups this week. Who are the first players that we're locking in, guys that we're fine with being in our cash game core? Freeman, I'll kick right back to you. We record this on Tuesday night, so of course things can change throughout the week. This is sort of a first look thing, but based on pricing and matchups and stuff like that for the main slate, who are guys that are standing out to you?
I'm going to be highly unoriginal and go with some of the guys I went with last week, but Cam Newton, I think once again in a really nice spot at home as a favorite going against the Bucs, who are 29th on defense and pass DVOA. He's, inconsistent as a passer. We all know that, but that's something you can live with when he's running the ball as frequently as he is right now. He's popping at the top of our models, and granted, some of our projections might change as we get more news and things like that. But right now, he looks like a guy, given that he's not as expensive as you would maybe expect, given the matchup and given what he did last week and just his recent production. Given those things, I think he's someone pretty easily you can lock in. There are so many running backs this week who are in pretty decent spots as favorites. But Kareem Hunt as a big home favorite, and given what Ian said with the change of coordinator to Matt Nagy, it seems like a really nice spot for him. Wide receivers, I'm going with the guys I had last week. Michael Thomas, he almost scored 3 touchdowns. The big problem with Thomas earlier in the year was that he wasn't getting targeted near the end zone, and then now he's just getting targeted in spades. So it's a great spot for him at home as a big favorite. The Saints have the second highest implied total on the slate right now. Devin Funchess is also pretty interesting. He's gotten a lot of production ever since the Kelvin Benjamin trade. And then Kelsey is a guy who's interesting. I think a lot of it depends on whether you are comfortable paying up for the tight end position, but he has a really nice matchup against the Dolphins, who have allowed the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends. And then if you don't want to pay up, I think whoever you would be interested in terms of like streaming against like the Browns, the Giants, the Broncos, pick one of those tight ends. One of them has a pretty decent chance of scoring a touchdown.
Very fair. Pete, what are your thoughts on some guys that are standing out as maybe some cash game plays? And I want to get your thoughts specifically on Ezekiel Elliott. He's 8K. He's at home against Seattle this week. They're 5-point favorites. But I'm curious if you think he's going to be more popular just because of the narrative of like him being pissed off.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be popular because he's a good play. I mean, 8K is very reasonable for him. I think people still are overrating the Seattle defense. We saw Todd Gurley just go ham. Going to monitor the situation for the Cowboys' offensive line. Saw they had some injuries this last week. Not sure what that's going to, what's going to come to fruition when we actually get to Sunday. But assuming they're relatively healthy, Tyron Smith in particular, either Ian or Matt, do you guys have any news on that?
Yeah, he's looking like he's legitimately questionable. They've ruled out like an ACL tear, which is good, but yeah, they're saying this week that he could be like a game time decision with a knee sprain.
Yeah, that's a really, really big thing to follow. I mean, yeah. He is so freaking good. So that's my, again, we're recording this here on Tuesday night, so it's hard to say, but that's one thing I definitely am monitoring.
And just one thing to follow up on that. Also, people should be sure to monitor what's going on with the Seattle defense because they've had a number of injuries, specifically to their linebackers. So Bobby Wagner playing with an injured hamstring. I mean, you could just see nowhere close to 100%. And then KJ Wright was out in that game. So their two main run-stopping linebackers were out. That allowed Gurley to have some big running lanes. So that's something really important to monitor for this game for Zeke.
Yeah. I like Deion Lewis quite a bit as a cash game play. Burkhead, obviously, no ligament damage, but he's going to be out until the playoffs. So, I do expect Gillislee to get some goal line work potentially, which isn't great for Lewis. But, I think the Patriots have been most effective on offense when they're really balanced in terms of running or throwing. And I think Lewis gives them the most versatility in that regard. When White's out there, they know that they're throwing way more often. When Gillislee's out there, they know they're running way more often. So I think the Patriots will try to leverage the, flexibility that they have with Deion Lewis. So I expect him to be really popular. I mean, Le'Veon Bell, 9,900, who cares? Like, it doesn't really matter what his price is, as long as it's below like 11,000, given kind of the opportunity he's going to get in this spot. Without Antonio Brown, I mean, I do think that there's some opportunity for some of these receivers, but Le'Veon Bell, I mean, his expectation is going to be, right around 30 fantasy points, which is just ridiculous. He has such a good chance to be the highest scoring player on the slate, and there is some value. So I think he's a really nice play. At quarterback, we'll see a variety of guys be popular. I'll probably go to Drew Brees. I know it's been frustrating this whole year going with, Drew Brees because the running backs have been so efficient, but Drew Brees, 6,500 at home versus Atlanta. Like, I'm going to load up on that for sure.
Cool. I will say that Le'Veon Bell is not on the main slate. He's on the Sunday to Monday.
I knew Freedman was snickering there for some reason.
I was going to say, yeah, it might be a lot easier for him to be the highest scoring player on the slate when there are only 2 games.
Yeah, I need to pivot away from the Sunday-Monday slate that I'm somehow on FantasyLabs here.
That's all right. I mean, you can play the Sunday-Monday slate, which is 14 games, so that's a bold call for that one. Ian, what are your thoughts?
He will be popular on that slate too, but the main slate, I'm going to go out on a wild limb and say he's not going to be owned.
He might be, yeah. You never know. No, probably not. Ian, what are your thoughts on some of the chalk?
Yeah, I agree with Freeman with Cam Newton. His rushing floor is just so ridiculous lately. I mean, he's had over 40 rushing yards in 9 of his last 11 games. He's the number 1 quarterback in rush attempts inside the 20-yard line. So, I mean, he's legitimately got the speed. He's 6'5", like 240 to actually go the distance. And then for him to be, one of their goal line backs as well, it was just not even fair for defenses. But running back, I'm cool paying up for Gurley. I mean, he's number 1 in the league in goal line carries. He's 6th in targets. I know he's on the road, and this Titans defensive front has been pretty good at stopping the run. But I was digging around a little bit today, and they've been at their worst when offenses have really attacked them over left tackle. And when Gurley's got Andrew Whitworth right there, PFF's number 4 overall tackle, definitely a good spot to attack a weakness. Out receiver, I think this is the week D.D. Westbrook blows up, guys. We got Marquise Lee likely to miss the game. Alan Hearns hasn't practiced in weeks. I know D.D. only got 2 targets last week, but he was still out there for the majority of the plays. I think we can confidently say what happened in Jaguars offense last week probably wasn't exactly their game plan going in. Maybe they'll try to get the ball to their starters a little more often moving forward. But then in that tight end, I think there's some cheaper options thanks to some injuries. We have Hunter Henry on IR with a lacerated spleen, so Antonio Gates gets to be BFFs with Phillip Rivers for 2 more weeks until he hopefully retires. And then we have a situation where O.J. Howard, per some beat writers, is expected to be put on IR in the next day or so. So if we can get Cameron Brate, on the field for 90% of snaps, we've really seen him ball out this year when he was more a featured receiver in that offense with Jameis. So definitely some value, I think, at the bottom of the tight ends position this week.
Interesting. Yeah, very good points there. So it's going to be interesting to see D.D. Westbrook. I mean, he had top 5 ownership last week in the Millionaire Final. He was owned in 27.5% of lineups in that, and then obviously busted at only 4.1 DraftKings points. So it'd be interesting to see if people are a little biased if they shade away after him burning so many lineups last week, or if they'll go back to the well. Definitely something to monitor and see where our ownership projections are later in the week on him. Let's keep on moving. Let's go to some chalky fades and leverage and pivot plays. Freeman, let's just keep on going around the circle here.
So I know Ian mentioned Gurley as a guy that he would be comfortable with in cash. I think cash is probably fine. I would check the ownership projections that we have in our models throughout the week just to see what we're looking at for ownership, because I could see Gurley's ownership projection being fairly high given what we just saw out of him this last week, and it isn't a great matchup for him. Just based, if you look at our Vegas page, you can see that there's some fairly sharp money coming in on the Titans. So that's something to monitor. But in terms of players that maybe I would pivot to, I mean, I'm going to be disgusting saying this, but Blake Bortles, he wore me down. Like because his salary has jumped up to where it is. Like it hasn't been this high on DraftKings all season. Only once on FanDuel this season has his salary been this high. He has a nice matchup. I think because of the salary spike, he's not going to have inflated ownership, even though he has been playing well and he does have a good matchup against the 49ers. So if you can get him at lower ownership with the matchup, I think that's something to pay attention to. LaShawn McCoy is someone who's interesting because I think you're going to see a lot of the guys who are, favorite running backs get a lot of the ownership. And then on the other side of that matchup against the Patriots, I think you will see Dion Lewis get a decent chunk of ownership. So I think that will lower McCoy's ownership. But the thing is, he's always an underdog going against the Patriots anyway. It's like it's nothing new, and he still has pretty good production against them each game. So he's someone I would look to pivot to. And then a wide receiver, interested in some guys who have underperformed recently, but I still think are getting some good volume, and that would be A.J. Green, Robbie Anderson, and Devontae Parker. I think all those guys have some decent matchups and will probably be pretty low owned in comparison to the volume that they're going to get, especially Parker. I mean, his ownership, I think, will be really low, but when he's healthy and when Cutler is healthy, he's getting pretty significant targets. And at some point, he has to see some touchdown progression. Just only one on the season on 69 targets from Cutler. Like, he has to improve that.
Let's keep on moving. Pete, what are some guys that you're looking at as some pivot plays, maybe away from the chalk?
Sorry, thank you for unmuting me there. One guy that I'm always going to that didn't come to fruition as much as I was hoping last week, but Alvin Kamara, I'm going to be big time on Alvin Kamara this week. In tournaments, I think he represents one of the clear just stud plays. Falcons have been weak against pass-catching running backs for a long time now, and I think this is a great spot for Alvin Kamara, especially when you consider someone like Kareem Hunt being $100 more. You have Zeke Elliott, 300 less. So in terms of just where he fits in relative to these other guys with his price, I think you'll get him at a relatively low ownership. Love stacking that game. You can run it back. You can run him with Breeze, obviously. and you can run back, someone like Devontae Freeman or Julio Jones or Sanu. Obviously, that's a game that people are going to look to stack, but I think a lot of people go to Michael Thomas and the pass catchers outside of Kamara because of his price. So I love Kamara in general in all formats, and I think he's probably my favorite overall pivot play.
Awesome. Ian, what are some pivot plays you're looking at?
Yeah, so we've talked a little about Dion Lewis. I like Dion, but I think we need to temper our expectations a little bit. I don't think he's about to just really take Rex Burkhead's workload and become this 20-plus touch back, especially with, the Patriots. They kind of won their biggest game they needed to win last week already. I mean, Dion Lewis has had over 15 carries in the game just twice in 52 games in his career. I mean, he hasn't done it yet this season. So it's I think it's fair to question if he's going to really be a guy that they're going to just pound before the playoffs and feed when they do have Mike Gillislee, who hasn't played since week 8. Gillislee offers absolutely no receiving floor, and even in a revenge game, it's kind of hard to get behind him. But I mean, James White was averaging he literally averaged 3.5 more targets per game without Burkhead in the lineup this season. So with Chris Hogan out, Burkhead's out, he works out of the slot a lot. I think kind of the part of the Patriots offense that could have some more touches to go around is kind of that slot receiver role that Brady likes to dump the ball off to. So even though James White is kind of predictable when he's on the field, I don't mind going down to him, especially if Dion's going to be one of the chalkier running backs on the slate. And then, kind of going with those receivers, man, like A.J. Green is so talented, but he hasn't had over 80 yards in 8 of his last 9 games, and I'm not sure if this is the matchup for him to break out of this slump. I know his price is low, but we got Darius Slay coming up, and I think even more so than Darius Slay, he's good, but the Lions, I think, just do a really good job in general of they can take away a number 1 option if the offense doesn't have much else to offer. The number 4 in DVOA against number 1 wide receivers. And, even if we don't particularly think all that much of the Lions defense, we haven't seen anything from this Bengals offense really give us any confidence they can get things turned around. We got Marvin Lewis saying in press conferences he's basically indifferent about coming back to the team. So, even with A.J. Green being, I think, one of the more talented guys out there, with no one else on his offense and just complete apathy around the organization, it's tough to hop back on that trend.
One guy I want to talk about that I had circled is a guy that's right in that same price range, a little bit more expensive on DraftKings. Keenan Allen. We saw the Chargers just put up an absolute dud against a not amazing defense in the Chiefs. I won't kick to anyone in particular, but do you guys have any thoughts on what went wrong? I mean, was it just a weird Saturday night matchup in Arrowhead that it was just sort of a letdown spot? Do you guys? I know there's a lot of people who are saying that the Chargers. It's just what they do. They really weren't that good. Or are you expecting a bounce back spot against the Jets? Just a really interesting team for the slate, I think.
I like Keenan Allen a lot. I mean, I think that Philip Rivers, the team will bounce back in a big way. The incentive for the team is obviously a lot less at this point. They still have like a couple scenarios to get in, right? Like the Titans losing, the Bills losing. They're still in the hunt. So I like the Chargers a lot. They need to win out, and this is a great spot against this Jets team, which has been getting killed by the pass all year. I thought the defense did play well against the Saints at home, or against the Saints, but I still love Keenan Allen. He's been so good all year. Don't mind a flyer with like Tyrell Williams. I'll have to monitor the other receivers because there are some injuries there, right, Ian?
Sorry, injuries where?
On the Chargers wide receivers.
The Chargers wide receivers are pretty healthy. I was going to bring up kind of in that game, one scenario I was looking at is Melvin Gordon, because we got Austin Eckler has a broken hand, so we can kind of increase Melvin's pass game usage there. And then on the Jets side of the ball, we got Leonard Williams in the concussion protocol, and Muhammad Wilkerson last week was a healthy scratch, coach's decision. So if we take away those 2 run stuffers in the Jets' interior defensive line, I think that pass funnel defense is all of a sudden a little more susceptible to run.
Cool. All right. Let's keep on moving. Let's go to some conventional stacks that we're looking at for Week 16. Freedman, start us off again.
So I'm good with Breeze, and I think the clear stacking partners are Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. I'm going to just call him Kamara. That's really what we should have been doing all along, but Kamara. And then, I'm good with I think if you are interested in going away from Gurley, I would still want some exposure to the Rams. And the Titans are exploitable through the passing game. I think it could be a Goff week to go with Woods and Kupp, Watkins, if you want, however it is that you like those receivers. So I think that could be good. And then I'm interested in Dak with Dez, with Ezekiel Elliott coming back. That Seahawks defense, with the guys that they are missing, Sherman, Chancellor, at this point, Bobby Wagner is questionable. Wright is questionable. They don't have Cliff Averill on the defensive line. Like, at that point, you're missing like significant starters. It's really not the Seahawks defense anymore with those guys out. And the Cowboys at home, Dak is just much better at home than on the road, much better with Zeke, much better with Sean Lee on defense to help get them the ball a couple more times per game. So I'm more interested in Dak in this spot than I think the market would generally be, just because of that matchup. But I don't think that matchup matters as much anymore.
Yeah. One guy, the first guy that you mentioned as a chalky play, Freeman, was Cam Newton. I'm curious what your thoughts on the public's going to do. Do you think that Greg Olsen might be a little more popular than he should be after the explosion? 12 targets, 9 receptions, got a touchdown, or do you think that people will just go back to the punch as well?
Yeah, I don't know. Olsen, I mean, he just, even though he got that production, he just looked so old. He looks like so Witten-esque. Like it happened in 1 year. He just became Jason Witten. So I don't know. People might be interested in him, but I think there are probably other tight ends that they would be tempted by. Like I think there are other like Ertz. There are other guys that they maybe want to pay up, or they just pay way down because there are some options available. Yeah. I really don't know with Olsen.
Yeah, that's fair. Pete, what are some chalky stacks you're looking at?
Yeah, real quick on Olsen, I mean, it makes sense that he's not looking as explosive coming off a foot injury. I mean, I think we'll see what happens. And it could be a big problem for the rest of his career, but I'm definitely going to continue to kind of follow up on that just to see if he's a guy that you definitely want to watch film on the next couple of weeks. In terms of chalky stacks, I mean, we already hit on Drew Brees. That's my favorite one right now. I like the Rivers Keenan Allen call. I like Rivers with Melvin Gordon. After what Ian said, I think that makes a lot of sense. Jared Goff to Robert Woods, who's clearly the number one receiver again. That makes a ton of sense to me. Really like him. Don't mind running it back with Rashard Matthews, who I thought looked really good last week. So there's a nice game stack that I think presents itself there. One other chalky-ish stack, I don't know how chalky it'll be, will be Brady to Gronk. I talked about how much I love Gronk. I think this is another really good spot. The only concern, I guess, is just within the division, second game within the division here. But that's another kind of direction I'm looking. And if you want to pivot away from Zeke, let's say that Zeke really ends up being the chalk, I don't hate going Dak to one of these receivers. Des Bryant certainly has been disappointing, but maybe it's Dak to Jason Witten, which is kind of gross, or Dak to Terrence Williams, who's getting a lot more looks. So that would be a good pivot play, I guess, more than a chalky stack. But I think my favorites are definitely the Breeze stacks and then Rivers and Goff.
Fair enough. Ian, hop in here. What are some stacks that you're looking at? It could be cash or pivot places. We've sort of like blended those segments together.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about this Cowboys-Seahawks game, and I've just been really interested in kind of stacking these quarterbacks with a pass-catching running back. Like on our correlations dashboard, the typical correlation between a quarterback and RB1 isn't all that high, but I've noticed with guys like Dak and Zeke, especially like Goff and Gurley, we're definitely seeing a more strong positive correlation of even like 0.3 or so. So I think, obviously Dak and Dez is a pretty popular stack. I think for good reason, but I think Dak and Zeke, especially with how much of a factor Dak is in the red zone with his feet, you're really just getting a lot of equity to both the Cowboys run and pass game there, even though you're getting their two main rushing threats. And like Freedman was saying, this Seahawks defense is completely different. We had Earl Thomas calling out Bobby Wagner, saying he shouldn't have been playing hurt because the backups could play better. KJ Wright isn't guaranteed to come back. And really, I think the heart and soul of this defense is Cam Chancellor. For a strong safety to do what he does and really come down and defend the B gap on a play-by-play basis is incredible. And sure enough, in 14 games without him over the last 3 seasons, they've allowed an additional 5.1 points and 24 rushing yards per game. So definitely an exploitable opportunity there. And then, yeah, with the Rams, I mean, do people really still think like Cooper Kupp is the number one option there? I mean, Robert Woods has been Goff's go-to guy all season, except for, this stretch where he had his shoulder hurt. And, Kupp's kind of getting fed inside the 20-yard line. But at the same time, he didn't surpass 80 receiving yards when Woods was healthy. And I think Goff is really featuring Woods as that guy. I still don't hate Sammy Watkins just because of the targets he does get are pretty fantasy friendly and down the field. So if he will get a few in tournaments, you can kind of hope that those few will be big ones. But yeah, and so same thing kind of we mentioned with Zeke, though. I do think Gurley and Goff is okay to stack together due to his pass game involvement.
Yeah, we've seen this a lot with the high-pressure running backs. I was looking it up. Dak and Zeke have a 0.41 correlation, and even like a guy like LaShawn McCoy and Tyrod Taylor have like a 0.53 correlation. So, I mean, these high-pressure running backs that do everything, I think it's definitely okay to stack them for sure. So we sort of mentioned some like pivot stacks, but any last ones that you guys want to mention if you didn't get them in?
To me, and Ian's hit on Melvin Gordon, but because of the injury to Eckler, I'm interested in a Gordon and then Chargers defense stack going against the Jets with Bryce Petty at quarterback. I mean, not a rookie. He's actually like a third-year quarterback, but very inexperienced in terms of like the number of starts he's gotten. So I think that could be a pretty exploitable spot for them.
Yeah, one other one I like is, Kirk Cousins at home and maybe a little bit of Josh Doxson against the Broncos no-fly zone that has been allowing a lot of flying this season. They're a top 5-day defense and touchdowns allowed. And I don't know, man. We've seen Kirk Cousins just continue to put up yards no matter who he's throwing to. I mean, Trent Williams wasn't active last week. It still didn't matter. I don't know if I'm ready to throw Capri Bibbs in a contrarian stack. That's a little too crazy, I think. But, he's given Doxson these kind of 50-50 balls of quite a few times a game. I think Doxson is really the most talented receiver on that team. And, with Jamison Crowder kind of getting that tougher matchup against Chris Harris Jr., I think Doxson has a chance to win some matchups on the outside against Bradley Roby and maybe a less than motivated Aqib Talib.
Capri Bibbs revenge game against the Broncos.
You're setting up.
Pete, how do you feel about this? Yeah.
Oh, well, you're setting up some nice props there, Ian. So we'll definitely hit on that, which is going to be fun. And Capri Bibbs, of course, I'm on Capri Bibbs. I mean, that's my guy.
Pete, but how do you feel about him going against the Broncos? This is like your two loves,
I love it. I mean, it's the ultimate revenge game, and I mean, Capri Bibbs. I mean, talk about a legend. I wish we could go back in time where it was easy to win money, and you just played Capri Bibbs in college football DFS. I mean, he had ridiculous games in college football. So, yeah, I like Capri Bibbs. Caught a nice long touchdown pass. They're talking about getting him a lot more work, so I'm on him.
Pete, who's your favorite college DFS player ever to roster?
Capri Bibbs.
Fair. All right. Perfect.
What's funny, though, is his countermate, Samaje Perine, was pretty ridiculous. And we talked about Melvin Gordon, too. Melvin Gordon, Samaje Perine, back-to-back weeks, broke the rushing record. And I had them both. It was incredible. Now I can't do anything right. I pick Amari Cooper every week. But back in the day, college football, it was fantastic.
You could have, like, the ultimate old-school college football stack with Doxson in there.
Doxson is another one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, Doxson, Perine, Bibbs. Like, they're basically just
Melvin
like taking
Gordon,
all of the guys who won people money 3 years ago and just putting them on the Redskins, and you just stack them with Cousins.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the game. Capri Bibbs, he had a game, and it was a bowl game, and he was clearly hurt, and I still took him. And I was a little nervous at first because he had like a bad run at first, and then he busted like an 80-yard touchdown like on his third rush. And I was like, oh, Capri Bibbs. Clearly hurt, still rushes for over 200 yards. I'll find his exact line, but gosh, he was so good. It was awesome rostering him.
The good old days of college DFS. Yeah, I mean, these guys that were putting up like 60 fantasy points on like 7 touchdowns. It was a glorious time.
Yeah, another one that was awesome, probably my best day ever in college football DFS. I had a game stack that was around Derek Carr to Devontae Adams. And I think Devontae Adams had like 300 yards receiving in the first half. That was pretty neat.
So, Pete, that one game you're talking about, it was against Washington State. And it was Bibbs played at CSU only 1 year because he was a JUCO transfer. But yeah, 27 rushes, 169 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and a long touchdown. Exaggerated a little bit with the 200 yards, I guess, but I just remember him going ham like all the time. It was incredible.
The good old days. All right, let's get to our bold calls. Freedman, throw some out.
Well, I mean, Nick Foles, obviously. The Christmas Day GOAT. And then for teams, so yeah, I'll actually say what my prediction is for Foles. I'll say again, top 3 fantasy quarterback. For teams, I think the Rams are. I know I'm on the square side of this, but I think the Rams are too good to be only 6.5 point favorites over the Titans. So I'm going to say that they beat them by like 2 touchdowns. I don't know. I mean, that's probably high, but I think they're too good at this spot.
Yeah, that's bold. Pete, what are some bold calls you got?
Capri Bibbs going to be on the winning team for the $1,500 Millionaire Maker contest. Hopefully I have him in that spot. In terms of real life bold calls, you know what? I'll say the Broncos win on the road, stay on brand, and obviously there's no value in that comment, and you guys all know it's biased, but if you're going to be bold, stay on brand. So I'll take the Broncos to win on the road.
I like it. While Capri Bibbs goes ham.
Capri Bibbs is still going to do well. My bold calls are not correlated well at all, but
that's what makes them so bold.
Exactly.
Actually.
Yeah. Capri
donkey
Bibbs
take after donkey take.
Yeah. Le'Veon Bell is going to lead the main slate in fantasy points as well. Ian, what are some bold calls you got?
All right, I'm saying the Falcons are marching into New Orleans and coming away with a win. I know we got some backlash in that statement earlier, but I don't know, man. Like, we saw this Saints defense really play well this season, but it's not really the same Saints defense anymore. I think that Alex Okafor injury a few weeks ago really hurt them, and now his backup Trey Hendrickson's out. There's really no one else on that defensive line other than Cam Jordan I think offenses really worry about. Now their starting linebacker, A.J. Klein's on the IR. I mean, we're seeing, I think way too much of a Manti Te'o in 2017 that anyone needs to see. And, I really don't understand why the Falcons are so bad at stopping receiving running backs because of the amount of speed they have with Deion Jones and Devondre Campbell out there. I will say that, they did hold the Saints to 17 points. That was the lowest amount this season. I know they only had one drive of Kamara, so that obviously had something to do with it. But, just think even though this Falcons team hasn't quite put it all together yet, I think this might be the week they do so. And then bold DFS call. I'm going back to what with D.D. Westbrook. He's getting over 100 yards and scoring a touchdown, and it's going to be great. But, no, I really do think D.D. is, he's better than what we saw last week. This was last season's Blittenkoff award winner, best receiver in college football, preseason superstar. I'm sure Levitan loves him. And, yeah, man, so if we can get extra opportunity in that, I think he's talented enough to take advantage of it.
And stack him up with Bortles.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, how do we not mention D.D. and Bortles as a conventional stack? I mean, oversight on our part for sure. All right, well, let's get to the prop segment. I think it's a good idea, like we have the last couple of weeks, just to start going through the positions. So we can start at quarterback and then work our way to defense. Anyone got any to throw out?
I'll take Campbell.
I'm going to throw out the wrong position this week, like I did last week.
Yeah, last week I said quarterbacks and Pete immediately threw out a running back.
All right, Ian, you said you want Cam?
Camber's literally anybody.
I'm on the same train. I'll take Cam versus anyone.
Okay, see, that's unfortunate because I also like Cam. So, Brian, you want anyone else versus the three of us on Cam?
Not so much, really. No.
What if we do a draft where we do 2v2, right? So 1, 2, 3, and then 4.
Yeah, Brian, be the market maker for us there. Let us all take Cam, and you get the 2-3.
All right.
We have to get Brian to commit to it. That's the key.
Oh, I'm the one that's the market maker here?
Yeah, we'll boost your volume here, pal.
Oh, God. All right. All right, so you guys all get first pick?
Yeah, we all go Cam, and then you get to take your 2-3 versus the three of us. Get some leverage.
yeah, I'll take 2-3 if you would like one shot at Cam.
Yeah, give me one shot at Cam.
Okay.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Brady and Wilson. Maybe a bounce back week for Wilson. We'll see.
I'm taking Breeze.
Yeah, Breeze, good call. Ian, who do you want? You want Cam first?
Yeah, Cam first.
And I'll do Brady and Wilson again.
Throw Alex Smith in there.
All right. So I'll take Cam. Freeman, who do you want?
I will do Brady and Breeze. Actually, sorry. I will do Wilson and Breeze.
Wilson and Breeze. All right. Brady it is.
All right. There's some good ones right
I
there.
think Phillip Rivers is probably up there for me as well. He didn't get picked, but
he's third right now overall in our ceiling projections.
Yeah.
So someone who's popping there but doesn't have as high of a median projection.
Right. All right. Any other quarterback ones?
You know what? I'm interested in Garoppolo, given that old CSU Ram over there doesn't seem to be as high on him going against the Jags. So let's see.
Just to clarify on that whole stretch there, I love Garoppolo. The whole NFL, including my Broncos, are fucking idiots for not going after Garoppolo. I just was looking for a trend that I thought was going to revert, and I took Garoppolo versus the Jags. It's more love for the Jags.
I think it's fair.
It was a terrible take. I mean, it's just terrible. It's very hard to do, fake trends towards the end of the year.
Yeah,
much easier at the beginning of the year.
It is.
All right, so 15.9 right now is where we have the line. I'll take the over if you're fine.
Give me Bortles. I'll give you 3 points. We have Bortles at 18.7, and we have Garoppolo at 15.9. You get Garoppolo plus 3 points.
But I'm the Bortles guy on this pod for this episode.
Okay, well, we won't do that. I'll give you the action on just the over.
All right, that's very gentlemanly of you. Thank you.
Okay, I do want to get some Bortles action. So Freedman and I want some Bortles action.
Yeah, if Ian, you're anti-Bortles.
Oh, definitely.
So you're high on Westbrook, but anti-Bortles. So you want the under on Bortles, and Pete and I will take the over?
Yeah, I'm down for that. Also, I'm not sure, maybe this isn't even enough, but I think Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins as the two quarterbacks people thought San Francisco were going to have at the time of the preseason is a pretty decent match.
Yeah, interesting. Bortles is $100 more than Phillip Rivers, so I'll take that action. Freeman, there you go.
What are you suggesting that you will take Rivers and I will take Bortles?
Yeah, I'm giving you some equity. I'm giving you the $100 more player. I'm being generous here, Freeman.
You have an interesting definition of the word equity. I'm not going to take that. Thank you for offering, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that we talked about Bortles so much, and Rivers is cheaper, and he's obviously a really good play as well. I guess that's the point of this prop segment is sort of enlightens conversations like that.
Yeah, I mean, you want to give me a point?
Yeah, I'll give you a point.
Okay, I'll take Bortles. You take Rivers. I'll get the point. Yeah, that's sure.
Yeah, I think Rivers is projected for a point over him, so that's fair. Any last quarterback ones? You guys want to move to running backs? I know that Pete wants some Kamara action.
Yeah, I'm probably ready to move on.
Yeah.
Unless someone wants to go long Russell Wilson versus Breeze or something, I would do that. I'd go long on Breeze versus someone else. I don't know. You want Breeze against Russell Wilson? Yeah, I'll just throw that out there. I'll take that.
Yeah, I'll do that against you.
I'll take Wilson there.
Thought you guys would. Cool.
Yeah, I'm going to go Team Russ on that as well.
That's what the numbers say. I'm just going with my gut.
Pete getting some action. All right, running back. What do you guys got? Pete, would you take Kamara over Zeke?
Sure. Why the hell not? And I've gotten so much grief on Twitter. Everyone's telling me it's Kamara. Do you guys know?
I've heard both.
I've heard both too.
I've probably heard
I've
from people.
ridiculed.
I've probably heard from people who are incorrect. I think it's Kamara.
I think it's Kamara too.
Kamara.
Like Camaro. So that's how I'm gonna remember for the rest of my life. I'll be 80 and I'll be like, Camaro was in the Hall of Fame.
Is that what you're gonna sound like when you're 80?
Yeah, I'm gonna take Zeke over Camaro.
Yeah, I'm on the Zeke
Yeah,
side
just
as well.
throwing out equity. You guys gobble it up. It's fine.
Yep. Thank you, Pete.
You got to give me a Kamara just over the projection, then, though.
That's fine. 18. Yeah. Well, I'll take the under. You take the over. Yeah. Fair.
Done.
18 is pretty nice.
Oh, here we go. Brian really just gets
I'll abstain from that one. I'm just saying that 18 seems a little low for Kamara.
Okay. All right. I'm also interested in a couple other guys. I'm interested in Christian McCaffrey this week again.
Yeah.
Game flow might not be ideal for Christian McCaffrey, but early on, he's going to get the ball. And how epic was that audio when Cam Newton and Clay Matthews were going back and forth? That was amazing. You guys see that?
Oh, yeah. We had Clay calling him out on the wheel route. Cam just laughs to himself, and then he calls the wheel straight into a little angle route.
He's like, you've been watching film. Nice. Watch this.
Watch
Fake
this.
wheel route touchdown.
He went right into his cadence, like, without even taking another breath, too. It was incredible. I did want to bring up one guy we didn't really talk about, but Kenyon Drake, low-key, has a 3-down running back usage the last 2 weeks, and there's really no sign of Damian Williams potentially. I mean, he could come back. We'll see. It's only a shoulder injury. He's not, dealing with anything torn, but I just think Kenyon Drake right now, I mean, if Tevin Coleman doesn't play, then we got Freeman, obviously, but I think Drake's kind of like the almost cheapest 3-down workhorse on this slate. So not a great spot in Kansas City, but the workload is there.
It is interesting that I think he will have really low ownership because it's such a negative spot as a really big dog. But, yeah, I mean, he's been, as you mentioned, been super productive. So I think the ownership will lag what we would normally expect to see from a guy with his role and with his recent production.
I also think people are not going to want to pay 7-1 now for Drake. I mean, he was like 5K just last week,
Yeah. I mean, Ian, do you want over on the projection? Right now it's 17.6.
I don't know about that, but I might take I'd take like Kenyon over like Jordan Howard in a better spot. I'm not sure if that's just too crazy, but
yeah, that's a pretty big difference right now. We have Howard at 13.4.
I'd take Kenyon over McCaffrey. Pete was talking about him.
I'll do that. I'll give you it.
Cool.
I will take – okay, I'm going to take the Drake side of that. But, Ian, I tell you what, I will take – if you like Drake, I will take Camaro.
Come on.
No, but I'll give a point. But right now, what separates them, Camaro has 18. I should really call him by his real name. But he has 18, and then Drake has 17.6. So,
yeah, but like I said, I think Kamara is like pretty
right, so I'm saying I'll give
now.
A point.
Yeah.
I'll give Camaro plus a point.
Up to Ian if he wants to take it.
Oh, man. You know what? I'm already picking the Falcons to beat the Saints. Let's do it, Freedman. Let's dance.
All right, sweet. Who else do we have here? Pete, you said you like no. Who is it who likes James White? Ian, you like James White?
Oh, yeah, he's about the ball.
Yeah. I'll give you some action on that, although I do like the James White call. I think he will get enhanced target volume, but I'll go under if you want the under. It's 10.2.
Yeah, I like the over on that.
Okay. Pete, you got anything?
Pete wants over 8.5 for Capri Bibbs.
Yeah, I want that for sure.
I'll take the under.
Thank you, Freedman.
I'll take the over on that.
You too. I'll take the under on you too. Brian, you want the over?
Let's do it 2v2 just to make it fun.
Yeah.
I'll take the under. You Capri Bibbs lovers can root for him.
Ian, you want Gurley?
Just versus anyone?
No, you take the over. I'll take the under.
Oh, I guess we haven't totally decided if Le'Veon Bell's on the main slate or not, but I think a Gurley versus Le'Veon Bell situation is getting closer and closer to being a real conversation, but I think it's probably still a 2 or 3 point line for this week.
I think probably 3 points is probably a fair line.
Yeah. But you take Gurley if you like. You take the over. I'll take the under, 23.7.
Yeah, I'll take the over on Gurley.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about some wide receivers. What do you guys want? I'll take Keenan versus any of the guys 7K and above. I guess against anybody. Any other one.
I'll take Michael Thomas.
I'll take can't guard Mike. Best Twitter hashtag handle in the game.
It's true.
Okay, so you're giving Keenan Allen versus anybody?
Anyone in the main slate.
Oh, anyone in the main slate. Okay, I'll take Michael Thomas, and I will take Julio.
Yeah.
I just like Michael Thomas. Julio, man, he's running into Lattimore. That's going to be tough.
Yeah.
That was one of the guys he shadowed this year too.
Yeah. It's a calculated risk. I don't know. I think they might feed him a little bit more, and I think Julio can beat a rookie.
Julio can beat anyone. It's just whether they throw him the ball. Yeah.
Hey, he had some drops last night. I'm tired of I'm tired of everyone letting Julio off the hook this season. I mean, yeah, they don't throw him the ball as much, but come on, man, you're Julio Jones. Go make yourself some plays.
Going in on Julio, I like it. No, we go in on other wide receivers when they drop the ball. Yeah.
We're talking about Dez Bryant like he's 90 this season, and Julio Jones has half as many touchdowns as Dez. I'm not trying to say that Dez is any better than Julio, but I don't know, man. Like Steve Sarkisian isn't catching the ball for Julio. I'd like to see the most physically gifted receiver in the game. Maybe make some touchdowns on his own. Maybe he doesn't need a fade every time down the field.
That was straight fire. I want some Tyreek if someone is willing to give it to me.
I want the long Tyreek. Call him by his right name too, Freedman. Ty Freak.
Is Levitan he's taking this to the grave, right?
Of course.
I don't understand.
Levitan is pretty stubborn, just in general.
I don't understand it. I do not understand it. Like Tyreek is inconsistent, but he's not at least this season, he hasn't been any more inconsistent than someone like AJ Green. Like Tyreek has very similar raw statistics to AJ Green, except on 20 or 30 fewer targets. It's ridiculous.
Well, I feel like there's this idea that Tyreek has this insanely low floor, but how many guys even get 7 to 8 targets per game? So, if Tyreek's just one of the guys that can legitimately take any of those targets to the house, I think
he only busted really big versus the Broncos, and the Broncos are just petrified because they got roasted by him last year. So they did everything they could to take him away. I guess he had a bad game. I guess he's had a couple bad games, but I don't know. The really, really bad game was the Bronco game.
But every wide receiver has had a bad game, outside of DeAndre Hopkins and Antonio Brown,
Yeah, and the ceiling is just so high. It helps when you're the fastest guy in the field by a good margin. That's a good attribute to have in the NFL.
All right, so if anyone is willing to take the under on Tyreek at 15, I want the over. No one? Brian?
All right, let's bump it up, Friedman. Let's go to 15 and a half.
What? Why do I have to be the post right?
I'm going up with you too, man. I'm saying okay. I want the over.
But who is the person who would be most likely to take the under?
Not me.
So
I'll take the under if you go up.
Yeah, what's the number?
23.
I think that's higher than his ceiling projection.
16 DK points. I'll take the under.
Okay, that's fine. I'll take the over.
Done. Over. I'm in.
Bring it on, guys. Bring it on. All right. What else you guys like?
I like Robert Woods.
Dede versus Dez. They're $100 apart. That's such a good prop. Come on.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it's such a good prop. Dede versus Dez. Straight up.
There's a bunch of interesting guys in that 6,000 to 6,500 range. Mike Evans at 6,400.
I'll take Dez, although I know I'm just going to get roasted on this, and I hate it because I really do like Dede.
I want Dede over Dez.
Dede.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take Dez just to get some action for you guys. Bring it on. Pete, I thought you'd be proud of me there.
I am. I'm getting you're bumping up there. I like what I see, Brian.
I'm interested in Robbie Anderson. We have him at 11.
I want Robert Woods. I'll give you 2 points.
Where is Woods projected right now?
13.5. So I'll give you 2.5.
Okay, done.
I got Woods. I think one thing people haven't quite kind of, I guess, considered with Anderson, like that 3-game stretch he had with Petty last season was against some atrocious defenses. I understand that, Robbie had some really good – he had a 5 or 6 game touchdown streak. I mean, he's obviously a baller, but, Casey Hayward's no joke, and I just think that the matchups this time around with Bryce Petty, who we really haven't seen anything from, are a lot tougher than what we saw last year. So that connection, preseason connection they have, I'm not sure if this is the week it happens.
No, that's true. I think for me, a lot of it is based on the target volume. Since the Week 11 bye, I think he's averaged about 10 targets per game. I think 12 targets last week with Petty at quarterback. Like, I think he's still going to get the target volume. And the Chargers aren't using Hayward nearly as much in shadow coverage. But, it doesn't really matter because they have, 3 cornerbacks who are all awesome. So it doesn't really matter where he lines up on the field. For me, it's primarily about the volume that I think he's going to be getting.
You want to give 2 points on Devontae Parker?
You want Parker?
Yeah.
What's he projected for right now?
9.
Yeah, I like Parker fine too,
yeah.
But I'll take Anderson.
Yeah. Let's do tight ends. I know Pete just wants Gronk over everybody.
Yeah, let's do a draft.
Yeah.
What's fair for a draft here? Kelsey's on the slate, so he's at least somewhat close. How about I'll take 1, 5, 6 versus everyone. You guys can go 2, 3, 4. Okay. Seems pretty fair.
All right.
What do you think, Freedman?
I don't want to go first.
Yeah, I'm trying to go first.
No. I don't. Ian, go.
So Pete has Gronk?
Yeah. I'm taking Gronk, and then you get to go 2, 3, 4. You get to take 3 guys.
Okay.
Highest tight end wins.
I got Kelsey. I'm picking 2. I got Kelsey. I got Ingram, and yeah, I got Olsen. I'm not gonna get cute. I got next 3 highest price guys.
Okay.
This is
all right. So should I go over him, or that's going to reveal my hand? So you guys have to go next for the 2, 3, 4.
This is brutal.
I'll do. This is. I really dislike this. I'll do. I don't want to do it because I just don't think there's a value there.
Okay, Brian.
Yeah, this is brutal. This is making Rob pretty nice to pay up for. I agree with you, Pete. Yeah, I'll do Kelsey, Ingram. That third one is just so. Ingram's even in a pretty tough spot. It's really Gronk versus Kelsey, I think. If we had word on Howard, Brait would be interesting. I'll go Olsen, I guess.
Okay. So I'll take Jimmy Graham, and I'll take Delaney Walker. I'll take Jimmy Graham and Delaney Walker versus you guys.
Yeah, tight end is tough, man. Tight end is tough. Any other guys you guys want to be higher on? Antonio Gates getting back in the game here.
What is interesting is his ceiling projection right now
is massive.
It is ridiculous, and I don't know what we can really do about that. I get it because he is a freak in the red zone. Yeah. And if he's out there, and the Cowboys, in terms of DVOA against tight ends, are fairly weak, so it's a decent matchup for him. So there is 2 touchdown potential there with Antonio Gates, as weird as that sounds. So I understand the ceiling projection, but it is really high for a guy who's basically out there with a cane.
Yeah. I will be fading. All right, let's do defenses. Let's do another draft here. I think would be best. Freeman, why don't you book?
Oh, I suck at defenses. We'll do 1 and then 2, 3, and then I'll do 4, or however. But like that'll be the split 1, 4 versus 2, 3.
Yeah,
Sure.
Okay, I imagine everyone's just going to take Jacksonville, but anyway, who wants to go first? Pete?
I'll go first, sure. I'll Jacksonville. I'll take Jacksonville.
Right. Yeah. Ian, do you want 1 or do you want 2, 3?
I'll take 2, 3.
Okay. I'll do Jacksonville versus you. Brian?
I'll do 2, 3 as well.
Okay, Jacksonville versus you. So, Ian, do you want to do 2, 3?
Yeah, I'll take the LA Superchargers, and I got our Kansas City Chiefs banking on a vintage Jay Cutler game.
Nice. Brian?
I like it. I want the 2 LA teams.
Okay,
Chargers, Rams.
I will do okay, so Chargers, Rams. I will do Carolina against both of you guys. And then Pete, for 2, 3 versus you, I will do Chargers and Carolina.
Okay, I'll take Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it.
interesting this week. All right, any last thoughts, fellas?
That was fun, boys. Ian dropping some hot fire on the pod. It's great to have the 4 Labs guys. Crazy day in the crypto world as we're recording this, so sorry for being a little distracted out there. We are recording the 3 Donkeys after this, so if you want any thoughts there, we will be talking a little bit about it. But hope everyone crushes this week on Christmas Eve. Open up some nice Christmas presents with some DFS winnings, huh?
Yep, sounds good. A lot of good NBA action as well. Christmas, I always think about NBA when it comes to Christmas, but we definitely have an exciting football weekend as well. All right, we will end it there. Thank you guys for watching or listening as always. Good luck this week. Hope to see Fantasy Labs guys at the top of the leaderboards, and we'll talk to you next week for week 17.